woke up this morning and I realized I just needed to give you a little bit more of an understanding about what this Transilience phenomenon is. It's something that's not so simple to talk about because it's new. And just going back to the word for a moment, Transilience means to leap or to stride forward. And I look at it really as the capacity, the natural capacity that we have to go from where we are to where we want to be. So just like we have resilience, and we talk about resilience all the time and how important that is for our lives so that we can get back up again when life pushes us down, etc. But Transilience is our transformational resilience, which means that we need to be able to not just get back up to where we were, but to take ourselves forward so that we can stride forward. And the phenomena is this leaping, is this this crossing of a seeming chasm. And I'd like to say that this is actually very natural to us. We do it all the time. We have our rational minds. We have our emotional minds. And we don't think of ourselves as jumping from one side to the other as we shift from emotions to reason, but we're constantly doing it. But sometimes when our emotions are hung up for whatever reason, and that's what we have to address, then we find it hard to get back to being our rational selves. There's something that's missing between that connection, there's an imbalance in there that makes it difficult for us to continue to walk forward. Our reason and our emotions are kind of like two legs, and that's how we move forward. But when one of them gets injured or the connection between the two of them is not working quite right, whatever analogy you want to use, the point is that there's an imbalance, and then we're unable to do that moving forward, and definitely not able to do any leaping and jumping forward, which is what we want. We don't want to just mosey along through life or sit on the couch forever. So, as one of my mentors, Marisa Murgatroyd, says,
welcome to the Google apocalypse, a world of 130 trillion web pages, where 500 hours of video is uploaded to YouTube every single second, where human knowledge is doubling every 12 hours, a world where anyone can get access to virtually any piece of information anytime for free. We are literally drowning in information, bombarded by it every second of the day, even as we sleep. You could even say we're hooked. And it's not making us happier, healthier, richer, or more fulfilled. Just the opposite. Over the last decade, Americans have become less and less happy, with less social support and personal freedom. Cases of depression have ballooned almost 20% in a decade, making depression the leading cause of disability worldwide. The Googletopia that we were promised, where all of this information would make the world a better place and improve people's lives, never actually materialized.
And we're still picking up the pieces. And I assume that's going to take still quite some time yet. And what do wild turkeys have to do with any of this? Well, not a whole lot, excepting I just love having them around. I've always loved animals, and I wanted you to see them. But back to the real issue here, and that is the need, and especially in the tech community, to get the skills to be able to deal with. Depression is just part of it, but there is stress, and that stress caused by depression, by overworking, by being underskilled, by having a bad boss, by being passed over for promotions, whatever the case may be, that we do tend to all experience, especially in this environment of infotopia, Googletopia, however you want to call it. We need skills. We need different skills than what we learned in high school, primary school, in our families, because the environment, the context is radically different today. The pace of life is radically different. We are not just rational beings, and that's pretty clear because what is depression? What are all of these things? They're more than just getting out of whack rationally. Rather, it's to do with a balance, and this is where it's useful to really understand who we are as human beings. And I put it into very simple terms. It's not perfect, but the triune brain, or our three brains, our lizard or reptilian complex, our limbic systems, or our paleo-mammalian complex, as well as our neo-mammalian complex, which is our neocortex, and so on. It's an oversimplification of the reality of what it is, but it does give us an indication that we have a rational part, we have an emotional part, and we have a physical part. And when these three are not in balance, there are very real world physical, emotional, performance consequences for not being able to retain that balance that we so desperately want. We've got a natural sense for balance. The minute we tip, we try to correct, and that's just the physical side. But also, we know when we're kind of getting out of whack internally, into those invisible parts, and that's where we still need some help. We need these additional skills, and there's a little bit of a problem for the rational mind. It's very challenging because our limbic system does not respond to words. Our limbic system is not connected directly to our language centers. Our limbic system operates essentially through images and our sensory system. And as we know through PET scans and whatever else now, we know that when we are able to go in and re-envision a moment, it's as if our brain cannot tell the difference between our memory of that experience and the reality of that experience itself. And we can't just talk our way through those things. We have to have practical, doable, easy ways to deal with these, because this is a part of life. And that's what the Transilience effect is really about, is indicating that we as human beings, reminding ourselves that we're more than just rational. And because we are more than rational, we need additional ways to be able to address those pressing issues, those emotionally charged, or those issues that stress us. And the stress, part of that stress is emotional. It's not just that we don't understand. Part of the problem is we do understand with our brains, but we can't quite translate it into our lives because there's a disconnect going on somewhere. So what is that, and how can we deal with it? And are there very simple, doable ways to do so? And the answer is now, yes, there are ways to deal with it. In some ways, it's not rocket science. And in some ways, science often takes years to catch up to those who are insightful and provide us with solutions even before we know why they really are solutions. And I can go into this in much more detail, but I just want you to get a sense that in spite of the complexity of our world, and in spite of the challenges that we face, and I know that the information security, the InfoSec community, I know that the tech community itself is really the front line for all of this. My passion has always been to help people, and to help people to lead their lives well. And that can be done at many, many different levels. But as we become real agents of change in our own life, then we know better how to do that at the social levels, at the larger and larger levels. Having that capacity within our own lives is fundamental to being able to do that well as leaders in our businesses, in our community programs. It's fundamental to our careers, to our performance, to our personal lives. And it's important to those we work with and to the ones that we love. And the Transilience phenomena points at an area of work that has been little understood, but is now easily addressed. And I really want to be able to share that with you. So tomorrow I want to introduce you to 10 of the main experiences that we take people through. These experiences stack on one another, and they work together to rebalance the relationship between our rational selves and our emotional selves. It's not like we're broken because we get worn down by toxic stress in our lives, but sometimes there needs a little bit of a healing process. We need a Band-Aid, or perhaps a sling, or even sometimes we need something more. But the point is, we have natural capacity to heal when we give them a chance. So as we dig into that tomorrow, I look forward to going into that in more detail, to especially a couple of those main experiences that we take you through. And then in the meantime, I'd love to get feedback to see how nebulous this seems, or hopeful it seems, or if even looking at our brains as triune and having the reptilian component and our limbic system and our rational system is helpful to kind of get a handle on the complexities of our day-to-day life. And then again, whether you can see that there might be very natural ways that we can get these back into sync again. And for that, I call it a healing process, because, you know, that's just what our bodies know how to do. Because given the right circumstances, we stabilize, we regain our balance. And a lot of this is all about creating the right environment for all of this to happen, and enabling it to happen in ways that your current day-to-day environment and resources are simply missing, and without which you're handicapped in terms of retaining the balance that you need in your life to really live the life you want to have. So now for a quick rundown on the next video, because we're only just getting started here. So if you sometimes, or a lot, find yourself stressed out again, and what's worth it seems to be getting worse and accumulating, not getting any better, then you can begin to dial in the process of alleviating that the impact of some of that stress by first recognizing that there is more to countering stress than simply talking yourself out of it, or for that matter, co-ruminating with a friend. Because as you've now seen, your triune brain is both ancient, and it has this reptilian complex that is really all there for our survival. It's got the paleo-mammalian complex, or the limbic system, and the neo-mammalian complex, or the rational part that really helps, is the part that's most familiar to all of us, especially those of us who really spend a lot of our lives in our heads. But the important thing of all of this, and the question I want you to be asking yourself as a consequence of this, is, are you setting yourself up to win? To win physically, mentally, and emotionally? Are you making it as simple, clear, and easy to take actions that get your rational and emotional selves back in balance and working together? Or are you somehow inadvertently leaving yourself in overwhelm, that deer in stress's headlights? So in the next video, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you the entire Transilience algorithm to download, to print out, to put on your wall, and to start using. In that video, I'm going to talk about the 10 core experiences and how to implement each of these, and how each one builds on the other to get you where you want to be. And that is off the stress treadmill and off that slippery slope toward burnout. So in the next video, you're going to discover how acceleration really takes place, and how it will reliably take you, your team members, and even your loved ones to exactly where they want to be in their lives. And it will show you how to stack the odds of success in your favor. Don't forget to join us, write your comments below, and I'll see you tomorrow.